like to thank you for choosing to learn with us. And without further ado, let's get started.
So first thing we're going to look at in the software, let's talk about the structure of machine, the groups. Here are...
All right. I appreciate you guys sticking with me. First thing we're going to talk about today in this machine, that is the Force, are the tracks. So if you don't recall from the previous videos, you can't even see a track if you don't open a project. Open an empty project. The Force comes default with a plug-in track and an audio track.
Are all your groups. 8 groups you can choose from. Now remember, inside of the group level, you have those 4 modules. You can choose each module from the controller.
Okay, now, first thing obviously is to talk about a distinction, is we're talking about tracks and not groups. You know, the machine has groups, but the Force has tracks, and here are all our tracks laid out at the bottom. The thing we're going to talk about today are the type of tracks. And so again, we've been talking about the default plug-in, the default audio. You know that if you hold the track button, you can load a drum track. You know that if you push the plus button, you can load any type of track. But we haven't talked much about the type of tracks. So obviously, we've loaded a drum track. It comes default with an audio track, and it comes with a plug-in track. But there are also key group tracks, MIDI tracks, and CV tracks. On the Force, each track is its own thing. So when you control the volume on the Force, you are controlling the volume of the track. Now,
So again, from each group, you have the 16 sounds. So remember, each sound can be almost anything in machine. It can.
Now, on the Force, each track is its own, but the drum track has sub-tracks, if you will, or a subgroup, and you can access that when you push the note mode. And now you are in the drum track, and each drum track has up to 64 sounds.
Be an audio track. You can record audio directly onto this from an input that you choose. So a sound can really be anything. Don't just think it's just a drum hit. It can be really anything. So they're very powerful. And then again, 16 sounds per group, and then each sound has 4 modules to it as well, just like each group has 4 modules.
And so again, we have 64 sounds per drum track. And each drum track, as well as the main tracks, have their own module. And so if you go to the effects here, so each track has modules. And these square boxes with the plus signs are modules. And so not only do the tracks have modules, the drum track also has modules. So if you push Shift in Mixer and you go to the effects page, each drum track also has modules.
So you can really think of the possibilities. Maybe I want to load up a kick with a reverb, a delay, a compressor on it. And then at the group level, we can put even more effects, like run everything through a phaser then at that point. Down below that is the pattern editor. This is where the magic happens, I might say. This is where all of your patterns are created. Everything is sequenced, right?
And so again, now if we go back to our matrix area, this is the pattern editor. But you can't see the clip or the pattern without going into the clip matrix, right? So if you create a new pattern or a clip, you can see the clip. But this is the pattern editor.
Here in this area. But basically this is where you're going to build your songs. So your different groups, you can keep adding multiple groups in here. And then your scene is going to be your different scenes are going to be your song. So maybe your scene 1 is going to be your intro, and then a verse, and then a chorus, so on.
And so obviously, again, we can add multiple tracks, and each track has its own pattern, and the patterns create scenes, the scenes create sections, and the sections create songs.
Moving in the middle here is your control area. Parameters are mapped out already, and I can see them, and I can start turning them on the hardware right away. It's great. And you can visually see them here in the software. And then one other thing I want to do is jump over to...
Now, we haven't talked much about this control area at all. But again, you can see that when you turn the knobs, that you are controlling the volume of the track. If you go to the mixer and we go back to the volume, you can see that when you turn the knobs, you're controlling the volume of that track. But the knobs, the control area, if you hold it, you can change how the control area of the knobs function. And so I generally use the volume or the screen. And now when I put it to screen, you can see that the boxes below have changed. I'm no longer controlling these 3 tracks with these 3 knobs. Now we have 4 boxes lit up. And so now when I change the knob, turn the knob, I'm controlling the volume of the selected track. And so you have to pay attention to which track you have highlighted when you are in the screen segment of the knobs or the control area. So again, when you are in the screen segment, you are controlling different segments of what's on the screen. So when we come over here now to our mix area,
this section, which is the mix view. So we come over here and we can actually see all of our groups arranged by sound. If I double click here, we can just see the groups all together. If I double click again, we can get in to see the individual sounds within. If we come down here, we can see.
And so again, we are looking at the track view of the mixer. But if we want to see the individual sounds of our drum track, we have to push Shift and Mixer. And now we can see the individual sounds and adjust the sounds within the drum track.
Here, I/O, our inputs and outputs, our settings for whatever inputs we're coming in from an external source or MIDI inputs, this kind of stuff. We can add plugins right from here, all this good stuff. Our level, our auxiliaries, again, we'll explain this all. And then down here, we don't see anything yet because once you start loading in your different instruments and effects, anything inside a machine, you're going to see a nice handy little view here, and we can get into more detail and see what's all happening.
And so when you load something into the Force here, even when you load a drum track, you're generally stuck here again in the matrix view or the clip view or the mixer view, clip view or the mixer view. But you can't see the GUI of that instrument or that track. If you want to see the GUI or the interface of the instrument or track, you have to push Shift and clip. And now you can see the GUI of what's ever on that track. In this case here, we're looking at a drum track, so we can see the parameters of each individual drum cell. If we go back to our audio clip, you can't see anything because there's no audio clip in it. If we go back to our plug-in track, we can see the GUI of our plug-in track. And because we are in the screen function on our knobs, we can control what's on the screen with the knobs. Alright guys, so the title of this video is The Force is Live, and that is because
First open up Ableton Live. What you'll see is what we're looking at right now, which is called the session view. As you look at the session view,
And so obviously we call this the matrix view. So when you first open up the Force, this is what it looks like. You start out in the matrix view.
We can see that this is laid out more like a traditional mixer. The tracks are vertical, and down here at the bottom of the track we can see a volume fader, and we can see some other elements that we saw in the arrangement view. Now the volume fader will allow you to turn up or down the volume or level of the track, and you can see the exact volume level in this little.
And so again, now that we've put our knobs into screen mode, we are changing what's on the screen, so we have to be aware of which track that we're on if we want to change the volume within that track. But again, now that we're in screen mode, we can change other parameters within the Force.
Box right here. You can also see where the audio has been peaking at in this box up here. Now below that, this circle here is our pan pot. This allows us to move audio left or right throughout the stereo spectrum. If I click on this, now.
And so again, now that we have our Force in knobs mode, you can change the pan of each track. But again, be aware of which track that you are selecting.
The audio will be playing on the left side. Now it's playing on the right side. The top portion of Live Session View acts as a sketch pad as well as a live performance tool.
And that's our matrix view. It's the sketch pad or live performance tool.
Essentially, it's a non-linear pattern-based sequencer. Parts can run in continuous loops, and they all magically fit to our session's global BPM. Now earlier, you saw me drag and drop audio content from my desktop using the Finder.
And so, if you've been following along with this workout, again, we've gone over the software and the hardware and the browser, so we've brought some sounds in. And so you may have saw in the last video that I brought in a loop from the browser. And so again, to get to your browser, there's two ways. You can push menu and go to browser, or you can go just push load. Now you're back in your browser.
You see by double clicking, we created a brand new audio track, and here's our audio clip in that track. Now below the categories section, we have a places section.
And now that's what I'd like to talk about today, are the categories and the places within the browser. And we've touched base on this a little bit before, but I want to talk about it just a little bit more. And so again, the places or the categories within the browser. The places consist of the internal drives, whether that's your internal hard drive, an external SD card that you may have installed, or an internal SSD that you may have installed. So those are the places that are on your Force. And then below, obviously, you can see any expansions that you may have, the factory expansions, and those that may be on your card or within your disk. And then you have the content. And so obviously the content is the content that is in those places: audio clips, instruments, MIDI clips, kits, samples, and then the splice sounds. Now I just want to touch base a little bit on this segment, because only in the content area can you see your splice sounds. So if you have a splice account and you are syncing it to the Force and you're not sure how to do that, check this video right here. That's what I just synced it up for you so you can see how to do it. But if you have a splice account and you are using those sounds and you want to use those sounds, the only place to see those sounds are here in the content screen. And then obviously they are categorized by BPM, instrument, key, pack, tag, or obviously all the samples. And then we go back over here to the expansion tab. And the expansion tab obviously gives us a thumbnail view of these expansions that we're seeing here in the places category. So each of these tabs has hardwired categories.
Categories is more hardwired locations. These are predetermined by Live. The places section allows you to set custom locations to any content that you frequently use or just want to have handy, so then that way you can browse your own content without leaving Live's interface.
And so with the 3.2 update of the Force, AKAI introduced something called the sounds screen. And so I think that the sound screen is probably the best way to keep all of your sounds organized and the quickest way to find them. And so when you come to the sound screen, and that's just by swiping right, so I go back to load. Again, this is our general browser. But if you go back over here to the sound screen, you can search your sounds by instrument or pack. And so I'm obviously here on an audio track and you can't see anything, but if I go over here to my instrument track, you can see all my instruments on the sounds page. And if you pick one of those, you can favorite your favorite instruments. And this is the best way to quickly and easily find your favorite sounds.
Now, at this point, you should have already downloaded the materials pack. And what we want to do is make a shortcut for that in our places location down here.
And so again, at this point, you should have already downloaded the Sound Pro expansion pack. And so we're going to load a new drum track. And then you can see that I'm in my sounds section. And we can go to our expansion and you can see our Slain by Force expansion. And so what you want to do is download that expansion so you can bring it into your sounds section. So you can find it quickly and easily as we go through these workouts.
So we'll hit this plus button. Now we're able to search through our Finder and locate the folder that we want to be in the Places section. So I put my music folder.
And so again, we can find our Sound Pro expansion either here in the expansion tab. But the more expansions that you get into your Force, you will fill this thing up. And so the quickest and easiest way to find your expansions as you start to fill this thing up, again, is going to be to get them into your sounds section. And in the sound section, again, you can go in and you can see all the kits that you have, any folders that you may have. But the problem with the sound section is it doesn't show you individual samples or MIDI files. So to see those things, we have to go back here to the expansion thumbnail view.
And why is because I like to have all of my content that I plan on using in a centralized location. This makes it much easier to keep organized. So I encourage you guys to do the same thing. Now I've located my folder. I'm going to hit open. And now you see it's here in Places. So let's select this and see what shows up to the right. Now we can see all of the content inside the loop. And if we go inside that folder, we see.
And so here, now that we've got our Slain by Force expansion loaded up, we can see all the content within that expansion because there are, again, hardwired sections within the Force. And so we can see all the projects that are in the expansion, the MIDI files, the kits, the instruments, and the samples, or just in general, everything that is in the file. So,
more folders, and we can expand and collapse these folders to see the content within them. Now, let's say there's a particular sample, particular audio file that I wanted to find in all of this. Okay, it's a ton of stuff to search through. So instead of just going through every single folder, a really, really quick way to search for the exact file that we want is to hit Command F. So let's do that. And I want to find a file called Detroit that's spelled with 2 E's. So D.
So let's go back to our Finder and go back to our Slain by Force expansion. And we're going to look for a file or a sound called Detroit, spelled with 2 E's. Do it. And there it is.
E. And as I'm typing, you see suggestions are brought up. And look, I didn't have to type in the whole thing, and there is the file I was looking for, Detroit. Now, in addition to just adding this folder to the Places area, I can also right-click on it, and if for some reason I ever want to get rid of it, I have the option to remove from sidebar right here.
And so that is one of the hidden tricks on the Force. I'll show you right off the top. So I'm going to look for another loop. And so I'm going to load that into my second slot there. If you ever want to get rid of a sound on your Force, It's not obviously posted anywhere, but to delete a sound in your library, you push Shift, and then it brings up the sub menu, and you can delete the file from your force.
Another thing that's really convenient is if you have a lot of content, at some point you might forget exactly where it is in your Finder. Somewhere on your hard drive, you've added it, you haven't had to search for it for a while. Where did I put that folder? Well, you can use the Show in Finder option here. And now this takes me right back to my music folder.
And that's what the sounds section does. It takes you right back to the folder that you want to quickly and easily.
Convenient. So I'm going to drag and drop this into my audio track here on Ableton Live. And you'll notice once I bring this in here, it becomes a clip. Now,
same thing. So we've been bringing clips in here, and now when you want to play this clip, you just tap one of them.
if I want to play this clip, you see there's a play button right here in front of the clip. All right. In Ableton speak, it's called launching. All right. And you can play this just by clicking on that, and it'll start to play. I can also stop this by either hitting the space bar or by hitting my stop button up here in the transport.
Now, I would like to draw your attention to how my screen is looking and how the knobs are looking. Because again, now I'm not controlling the volume on these knobs as they were when we first opened the Force, because I'm in the screen view. And so now that I'm in the screen view, I can see everything from the knobs or the control area that is happening on the screen. I can see the BPM, I can see the time division, I can affect the swing, I can do a time correction, the pan, all of that stuff now because I'm in the screen view. So I'm going to turn this track down, and we can launch this track just by hitting it.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play this clip, I'll launch this clip, and as it's playing, I'll adjust the tempo of our project. And as I do this, you'll notice that our drum will adhere to whatever tempo changes I make here. Check it out.
So what we want to do is see if we can replicate what's being done in the video here. We want to see if we can launch our drum loop and see that it stays in time with the clip and the tempo.
So as you see, the audio you bring into live, once it becomes a clip, it's elastic.
All right, let's see if we can do that. Now I've got my clip loaded up. Let's launch it. See if we can turn the tempo up and down. Now I've turned the tempo down, but as you can see, the clip didn't stay with the force or the tempo of the clip. And so what I want to show you here is that it's very, very important which setting you use. So if you load a clip up and you haven't clicked on this preference, which is audio tracks auto warp, because in the earlier video I said that you might want to have that off. So now for this tutorial or this demonstration, you want to turn it on, because if it's off, when you go to load your clip, it will not keep tempo with the force. And so again, we have this clip loaded. And if I want to turn it back up, turn the tempo back up. We go back to the clip view, you can see that the clip now fits within the clip. Now, let's load that same drum loop, But this time we're going to turn on that preference that is auto warp audio tracks. And so now we're going to leave that first clip there, but we're going to go back and we're going to load it again in the clip below it. And go back here. Now we go back to that clip. Here's the first one we loaded. Here's the second one we loaded. 3 and 4, or 2 and 4. So now the first one that we loaded did not stay with the tempo of the force. As you can see, the clip does not adjust with the clip length of the force. Now let's load the other, or hit the other one. And let's turn it down. Now you can see in this one, it is still staying within the same frame of the clip, or sticking with the width of the clip, even though I have turned it down. And so I can type in whatever tempo I want. And it'll go right back to it. And it will stick with it. Or I can go right back up to the 130 that the clip was. But again, if I go to that previous clip that I loaded before clicking on auto warp audio tracks, you can see that when you change the tempo, it does not stay with the clip.
Now, I'm going to bring in another clip, which is more of a melodic loop, and I'm going to place that on the same track. I'm going to do this the same exact way as I brought in my drum loop, which is to go to Finder and locate it on my desktop, and then drag and drop it in. So there's my desktop. This is the sound that I want to bring in. It's a little melodic bass, and I'm going to drop it on the same exact track. In addition to our audio adhering to the project's tempo, we can also freely change the pitch or transpose melodic audio without affecting the timing or tempo. Because again, remember, our tempo is set right here. Our project tempo determines how fast or slow the clips will play. So if I want to change the pitch of this, I need to be able to see the clip view.
And so that's what we want to do now. Again, we have another clip loaded into this same audio track, but this time we're going to try to launch this clip and not change the tempo or the speed. We're going to try to change the pitch or the tune,
Which will show me the parameters of the clip. To do that, I can just double click here, and now you see the view at the bottom is changed. So I'll play.
And so obviously we clicked clip so we can see the clip view, but if we want to edit this clip, we have to go to menu and push sample edit, and now we can edit the clip.
This clip, and as it's playing, I'm going to adjust the transpose knob, which is right here. This allows me to change the pitch. So you'll notice the change, and also keep in mind that the tempo of this is not going to change as I'm raising and lowering the pitch.
Now if we want to reproduce that here on the force, again, we can see the clip view here because we are in the clip view, but if we want to change the parameters of this clip to be able to change the pitch or the tune of that, we need to go into menu and push sample edit, and now we can change the tune of this clip. And we're still at 130 BPM. So there you go.
So again, we're able to bring in different melodic pieces of audio and transpose them, change the pitch to make them all fit, as well as playing things all at the same tempo because our tempo is determined by the project tempo. All of our audio adheres to this. So you can bring in any piece of audio that you want and make everything fit together. And that's the beauty of Ableton Live. All of your audio will adhere to the project's tempo, and you're freely able to transpose audio as well to make everything fit together. You can make the impossible possible.
And so again, that's why I say the force is live, because you can bring in anything you want. You can make those things stay in tune and in time and make almost anything possible with this thing.
Now, the last thing we want to do real quickly is just kind of load up a project so we can talk about, some of these concepts that we've been talking about in the overview of the software and the hardware. So what's cool about this, you can search from the internal projects that Native Instruments provides for you. For instance, maybe any expansion packs as well that will come with projects.
And so let's load up a project finally. Let's go back to our expansion pack, go back to the browser. We're going to load up a project from our Slain by Force expansion. And so again, you can see these things are hardwired from left to right. We have the projects, MIDI clips, kits, instruments, samples. We're going to load up a project.
So let's load up this one called The Beach. Intended to be like that, but the whole idea here is we want to show you the layout. So what's going to happen here,
So let's load up this one called The Beach so we can show you the layout. And yes, we're going to replace everything in the project.
Load our song. I don't really need the browser. I'm just going to actually expand it. And remember here, again, if we want to see what we're doing, we can always just kind of scroll in and out from here. So here is a song. This is what the structure looks like. I'm just going to hit play. So you get the idea.
So here is our song, The Beach, in the force here. And the purpose of this project or this expansion pack hopefully is to share with you what I wish that I had when I first started making music. And the goal of this project is to introduce to you different aspects of this machine that is the force. And so the first thing I want to introduce you to on the force here, obviously we've talked about the controller and the knobs and hardware and the software, but I want to introduce you to this crossfader. And so what first thing we want to do is assign the crossfader to track 1, assign A to track 1, and assign B to track 2. And that's so that we can use these projects within the force. Again, the purpose of this project here, whether that be the beach or any other project in your Slain by Force expansion, is to give you an idea of how projects are laid out. So when we go back to our clip view, you can see this song, The Beach, in its entirety from left to right.
Now, again, like we were talking about song structure, this is basically the song. Think of this in the same way as you're looking at a DAW. So, Pro Tools, Logic, Ableton, anything. Normally, you're going to have your sections going in a horizontal timeline. So, starting at 0 seconds all the way up to, maybe it's a 3-minute song. And you have your progressions going. This is how most people are used to composing or arranging. It's the same concept in Machine. It's just a little different. So again, remember the scenes, as I talked about, this is kind of is like the intro. And of course you can double click and rename this. Sometimes they do. I suggest doing it because it's easier for you to follow along.
And so the purpose of this jam bank or this expansion, and this is what I call a jam bank, is to give you an idea of the sections of a song. And so here on track 1, we have the entire song being The Beach. In track 2, we have sections of the song. And so the objective of this jam bank is to launch the sections of the song in the appropriate place within the track. Let me give you a demonstration. We're going to launch this track and this track this track and this clip at the same time. And when we do so, we're going to hear the two of them together. You can see the track here. If I select this one, you can see I'm in that track. See the volume went up. I'm going to go back over here. Now that's probably the first thing I want to share with you, is that we have to change the quantize settings to use this jam bank. So not only do you want to change the crossfader from assign A to 1 and B to 2, you want to push shift and turn the quantize down to 1/16. And so now when we launch these things, the clips will launch within a 16th of the quarter note. And you can see that we're still with it. Our clip is still with the main track. Let's watch the next one. Still with it. We're still with it. We're still with it. Still with the breakdown. Oh, that one I was a little bit off. See if I can catch up to it though. There we go. I'm back on it. And I think you could hear on that last one I was a little bit off. But that's a jam bank. I wish that when I first started making music, expansion packs came with something like this so that I could get an idea of the sections of a song. And so now, the only challenge at this point has been to download the Slain by Force expansion. And it's still free up to this point. So the challenge now is for you to download the expansion, pick one of the jam banks, make a video of you jamming along with the track using the crossfader, and we'll go from there.
So you can just get an idea. I want you to go through some of these projects so you can kind of see how songs are laid out in different ways. And again, if we come to the browser here, each project is going to be a little bit different.
Each project going to
so
be a little
kind of
bit
go
different.
through, see which ones you like. But it's pretty straightforward stuff. You can see how the patterns are created, everything like that. So next thing we're going to do is actually go in and create some patterns. So we're done talking. We're actually going to start playing. This is what everyone wants to do. So here we go.
Your mission, Jim, should you decide to accept it.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to download the Slain by Force expansion, pick one of these songs from the jam bank, make a video of yourself jamming along with the jam bank, and get a step closer to winning this OPZ. My name is GB. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I appreciate your time and attention. If you found anything in this video helpful, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button. If you're interested in continuing the journey, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace.
As always, should you or any of your IM force be caught or killed, the Secretary will disavow any knowledge of your actions.